And our guest speaker this evening is Mr. Richard Foster, gentleman over here. No relation to our own Alan Foster. Richard's a qualified therapist, Reiki master, teacher and shamanic practitioner. And he runs a thriving healing and spiritual coaching business called Calon Lan for clients all over the world. What's that translate as? Pure heart? Pure heart. Calon Lan, yeah. He's also the founder of the South Wales Wellness Show. Now, in 2019, he had his first CE5 ET experience and has had many interactions with many different ET beings over the past 4 years. Now, CE5 is a term that was coined by Dr. Stephen Greer. Stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Now, the first 4 kinds of contact, CE1, 2, 3, and 4, describe ET initiating contact with humans. But CE5 is the opposite, in fact. It's that it's humans initiating contact with ETs. Now then, we've used our own version of this technique at some of our sky watches with varying results. Anyway, back to tonight. Richard's talk is entitled My Galactic Encounters and Co-Creating with ETs. So please put your hands together for Mr. Richard Foster.
Thanks very much. So firstly, thank you for Swansea Ufo Network for having me, and a really big thank you to Jocelyn and Darren as well, because if it wasn't for those guys, I wouldn't have the courage to stand up in front of you and do this now. So a quick introduction for myself, really. So what this is kind of a slideshow talking about my experiences. And at the end, I'd like to do a meditation with you guys, because I'm able to connect each and every one of you to the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. And if you're interested, I facilitate that for you all this afternoon, so I'm very excited. Okay, so a bit of background from me is, so as I said, I run Calon Lan Healing. So Calon Lan Healing has been running now since for the last 4 or 5 years. As I said, I'm a qualified Reiki master teacher, shamanic practitioner and therapist. As I say, I also run the South Wales Wellness Show. That's why I've given you all goodie bags, because we had quite a few left over from the show. It was a great success. We had over 800 people attend, and we had people from all over the world. I think some of you guys said that you attended the Wellness Show, so thank you so much for your support on that. I'm also a member of Fire the Grid. Now, I'm not sure if anyone of you have heard of Fire the Grid. Has any of you heard of Fire the Grid? No? So it's run by a woman called Samoya, and it's a team of people in Canada, and I really highly recommend you check it out. I think it's firethegrid.org. She had the most amazing experience where she had a car accident with her son, and the car went off into water. She was dead for, I think, 45 minutes, and light beings came to her, brought her back to life, and she's able to get her son out of the car and bring him back to life as well. And ever since, she's been working with these ETs to raise the vibration of the planet. So what Fire the Grid is a global meditation, and I run the IT and I do the marketing and run some of the social media aspects for them as well. So I guess it's worth giving you a bit of background as well. Okay, so I've been working in IT now for 20 years. I did work in IT for 20 years. I was an IT director. I was working in Cardiff for a £100 million company, and really I just, although I had everything, I wasn't really happy in that job. I didn't really like IT that much. It was great money, and I just really wasn't happy in my life. You know, I was in an abusive relationship, and I just didn't know myself, and that's really where I discovered meditation. And you know, I recommend meditation for everyone, because it really helps. It really helps that. And obviously, when I started meditating, I started reading up on like Alan Watts and kind of more the spiritual concepts. And you know, what I discovered really is that I wanted to do something else. So I started reading Carl Jung, and that's how I got into therapy, and started volunteering with the homeless. And that's when I really discovered that I wanted to be a service. I wanted to help people instead. So I qualified as a therapist in hypnotherapy. I studied Reiki, which those who don't know, Reiki is a energy healing modality, and then did shamanism as well. So yeah, that's really how I've got here today. Now, kind of get to the meat of it now. So my first ET encounter. So at the time I was living over in Northern Ireland, and this year on the left is my ex-girlfriend's garden. She's quite big, houses in Northern Ireland are quite big, and there's a forest area. And as you can see on the right, I built like a little forest area, so it was her son's 16th birthday. So I thought it'd be nice to build a little forest area for his friends, and on the 21st of June 2019, which happens to be the summer solstice as well, which I do think had something to do with it, we were all out in the garden, and it was night time. We were kind of sitting there, and we had the fire going, we had like hot chocolate, we were having a laugh, and as it happens, I was just kind of scanning around, having a look at the area, quite proud of myself because the day went pretty well. And to my right, as I turned round, was a praying mantis, a 5-foot praying mantis standing next to me. Now at this time, the only thing I'd say about UFOs, I described them as greys, as you know, like that's how I thought of UFOs. I'd never even realised this at all. So as you can imagine, I'd like to say that I was brave, but actually what happened is I got absolutely shit myself, and my partner at the time, Lorna, and the 2 boys, we just run back into the house. So we just screamed and run back in. So I did kind of come back out, but it had gone. And really that was the kind of start of it, where I actually kind of did a bit of, that's when I started to do some investigation. So that night, now I should say at this time, is that I've always kind of been intuitive, I've always followed my intuition, but I never really had much psychic sense. So that night I went to bed, and so what I should say, as I was chatting, when we got back in the house, I was like, did you see that? Did you see what I saw? And they didn't. What they could see was a shimmer, which was interesting. So I couldn't really understand why that was. It was, oh, thank you.
Go on.
So we went back in the house. I was like, I don't really get why they couldn't see me. They were quite scared, obviously. For me, I could see it quite clearly. It's about 5 foot tall. Now I got some photos of praying mantis there. Its arms wasn't like kind of like that. It was more kind of like fingers. Or I'd say, if I go back to the last one, really, the mouth was quite different as well. It had kind of more kind of, it kind of had more kind of, I don't know what they call them, tendrils or things there. And when I was looking at it, I just had a sense, really. It was just kind of peace. It was almost like I felt like it was trying to communicate with me. Thank you. It was trying to communicate with me, but obviously because we got scared and run away. So that night, obviously we were a bit spooked, and we went to bed. And when I closed my eyes, I had I could see a vision, like a TV screen. Like picture in picture, you see on TV, so like a picture in picture. And there was all mantid beings, and they were looking at me, and they were waving, and I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool, this is amazing. What I didn't realise is that they were actually trying to communicate with me. So I felt like an idiot the first time, because I was just sitting there going, whoa, this is amazing, this is so cool. And I didn't realise that they were trying to communicate. So the next night, I went to bed, and they were back again. And that's really where they started communicating with me. So what they kind of said to me is that, so obviously I didn't realise they were extraterrestrial. When I did a quick search for mantis and a giant mantis, then I started finding out about the mantid beings. Apparently, I'm sure you guys have probably heard of mantid experiences. I'd never. And yeah, that was what they started talking to me. They said they're originally from the Sombrero galaxy. They've actually been on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years, so it's not like this being travelled as such. And one of the questions I asked was, why couldn't Lorna and the 2 boys see it clearly? They could see a shimmer. When I say shimmer, like Predator, when there's like an outline of it, so they could see it's not enough to scare them. And when I said it was a giant praying mantis, you can imagine. So when I said why is this happening, they explained that it's all to do with vibration. and they directed me to an author called Dr. David Hawkins. And this really really comes about the importance of vibration. So I'm not sure if any of you heard of Dr. David Hawkins, but he's a kinesiologist, and really vibration. So I'm not sure if you can see on that picture there where there's a Hawkins scale, and these are emotions that we feel when we're when certain emotions on there. So we're right at the bottom there. You've got shame. So shame and guilt is the lowest emotions we can feel. Now what happens is that when our body is experiencing those emotions, it's very heavy. So in this scale you can see it says expanding and contracting. So you've got shame, guilt, apathy, grief, and you've got hertz values as well there. So shame is 20 hertz. You've got fear, which is a bit higher, 100 hertz. Desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, and then we get into the love frequency, which is 500 hertz. So what I kind of, when I actually read the book, what I realised had happened is that obviously I was a Reiki master teacher. I'd been doing a lot of work on myself, releasing all these heavy emotions, and that is why I could see the manted being and why the others couldn't. So and this is part of this talk really is about all of you to realise how emotions really affect our body and how we feel. Now when we're experiencing a low frequency emotion like guilt and shame, our cells, every cell in our body is vibrating really, really slowly. And I don't know if any of you have had some hard times or suffered depression. Do you know how slow time goes when you're feeling down? It's because it actually is, your cells are vibrating slowly. The analogy I like to give is, like a hummingbird. A hummingbird is very, very fast, it's lighter. So when when people say that, they've let go of this and they're in the vibration of love, they are literally lighter as people. And then I don't know if you've all felt like that, open heart, or when you've been in love or something, you feel like you're floating around, it feels so easy. So this is where vibration is so important. So one of the first things I like to suggest for everyone is to let go of any shame, guilt and fear you have if you want to have kind of more successful experiences like this, because they will keep you, they will not see you. If you can imagine, it's like a radio antenna, and the higher the frequency you are, the higher that your kind of perspective is as well. And also the higher we vibrate, the more we can perceive. We also get our psychic senses activated, and we've all got psychic abilities as well, and the stronger our energy field is. So our heart, if you can imagine, our heart is like a Scalar machine. It's like a nuclear reactor. And obviously as a healer, the reason I can heal people is because I open my heart up, and then that allows energy to come through my body into the client. A really interesting fact that I found out through Dr. David Hawkins' work is that one person operating at 500 hertz, which is the frequency of love, impacts over 250,000 people, or a 30-mile kind of radius in the surrounding area. So this is how, you see in India where people go to gurus and they go into the temple and they're like, oh my God, the energy is amazing, you just want to be around them all the time. It's because they operate on a high frequency. And the higher the frequency we vibrate, it actually affects everything. This is why Fire the Grid and global meditations are important, because when we're operating at a high frequency, it changes the vibration of the planet. It raises the vibration of the planet quite significantly. And it affects things. They've done studies where it affects crime rates, it affects wars, you can see it across the world really. So that's kind of the importance of vibration. Let's get a drink here. So, after that experience, I started getting more kind of beings coming through. And again, it'd usually be evening time, and I'd be lying in bed relaxing. And if you think when you're doing that, you're in a relaxed state, you're kind of almost in a meditative state as well. And different beings came through. So the first kind of beings that started contacting me were the Arcturians. So I don't know if anyone have heard of Arcturians before. So ninth dimensional beings is the Arcturian Council that was contacting me. Now this was in 2019, and they started telling me that something was going to be going on in Earth, that there was going to be a pandemic coming soon, which was a bit strange. And I'll be honest, at this time I thought I was losing my mind. I really did. But I was obviously a therapist, I knew what psychosis was, and there's no way in a million years I could have dreamed up the things I was seeing, because I'd never kind of seen those things before. You know, so this is where I was kind of chatting to the Arcturians, and they were kind of explaining to me then that I'm a starseed. And this is really where the kind of Pleiadians came in. You know, it's so much, like I only can cover so much on here, you know, I know we're limited for time and things like that, but just so many lessons in how to be. You know, they were explaining to me, teaching me about vibration, they were, you know, helping me with healing, so much kind of knowledge. And what I found out then, when I actually got in touch with the Pleiadians, now first they started coming to me in dreams, so I was having like dreams, and I was dreaming about chatting to someone, and it was just a bit weird. It was like, there's something strange about these beings, and I think this is how they do the introductions. They start off looking like a human, and then they kind of show their true form. So I know they explained to me then that that I was a Pleiadian starseed. I didn't know what kind of starseeds were. Again, I'd never heard of them. And what I'd say is that I know there's a lot of talk around starseeds. We are all starseeds. We are all not from there. So the way I understand it is really when we incarnate, we kind of start at the 12th dimension. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dolores Cannon, but I think her teachings are pretty on the money with this kind of stuff. So they're like different schools, different star systems are like different schools. And when you're in a high dimension, you know, like, you know, in the 12th dimension or 9th dimension, the Arcturians, everything's really easy. You know, you've got superpowers, there's all love, there's no fear. And what we do is we work our way down until we get here to the 3rd dimension, which is the lowest frequency vibration here. And as Dolores Cannon says, you know, like he wouldn't incarnate on Earth as a first incarnation. He would incarnate here after a lot of time in other galaxies. And really our DNA as well. You know, like a lot of people talk about junk DNA. It's you know, all that DNA is basically from all the different beings and stuff. We're all made up of that. Now I did have an encounter with some reptilian races, and where they were coming through and telling me that I was actually a starseed from there. And then quite quickly that ended, and the Pleiadians came through to say that they were just trying to trick me because they're a lot lower vibration than the reptilians, and I assume some of you here that the reptilians are quite influential on this planet too. And they started explaining about the mantid beings as well. Like I had so many questions. So when I actually did some research and looked at some abductions, people said, oh, they were mantid beings abducted people. So I was like, okay, they don't sound like nice beings. And what they explained is that they were taken, they were put in, they were basically chipped and like a hive mind. And my understanding of grey beings is that they are all hive mind as well, the same as the reptilians. They're giving themselves their free will over to the AI, and the AI runs everything. Now, that's not to say you know, the Pleiadians and the Arcturians are they are a collective, so they do operate as kind of one, but they obviously have their own kind of things. But yeah, a lot more free will and connected into source. So the next part of my story really is about manifestation. So after we had these experiences, and I was still kind of, you know, doing Calon Lan and doing the healing, my ex-girlfriend at the time, who was just doing lockdown, we thought it'd be really good to get a motorhome. So we've been reading about manifestation. So we sat down and we meditated, and we said we wanted a camper van. We had no more than £15,000 to spend, which at the time of lockdown wouldn't get you much at all. And we read that it's really handy to make a first move in manifestation. So Lorna, my ex, bought a keyring, a van keyring. And about 3 or 4 days later, a friend called her to say that thank you for the work that she'd done, and she got a tarot reading to a guy in Scotland called Colin. So she had this tarot reading a couple of days later, and during the reading, he stopped and said, do you want to buy a van? And Lorna was like, what? She's like, do you want to buy a van? I'm moving to Texas, I'm writing a book, and I need it gone within a week. I'll take 15 grand for it. So that was our first experience of manifestation. It was like, absolutely blew me away. Now there is a reason for this as well, because it's part of the story. So yeah, so this is the van. This is the van we had. Which I don't know, doesn't look much on the outside, but it was amazing, absolutely amazing on the inside. And we flew over to Scotland to pick the van up. I met this guy called Colin. He was amazing. He was like living out the van for a couple of years. And what he said to me, we had really got on well, and he said, look, you have to get in touch with this girl called Susie, and she's an Akashic Records reader. Now, have anyone heard of the Akashic Records? Yeah? Does anyone not know the Akashic Records? Okay, so I haven't heard the Akashic Records either this time. So the Akashic Records is like a library of everything that ever has happened. So, you know, every lifetime, every decision, every thought, every word you've ever said is stored in the Akashic Record. Everything from that chair to this laptop as an Akashic Record. And when you access the Akashic Record, you can ask loads of questions about your previous lives. So it's really, really, it's really interesting. So I had this, so I had a reading with Susie. Again, she explained to me. She said, "You're a Pleiadian Starseed," which is amazing. And as we were chatting, she said, "You've done a lot of healing. You've got some special abilities. I really want you to meet a guy called Jerome." So Jerome's from Chicago. So I was like, "Yeah, no worries." I said, "Give him my number." So we ended the session, and then half hour later, I had a phone call from Chicago, and the guy there gave me a ring. Now Jerome I think he was on Discovery Channel, UFO Witness. So he's an Arcturian Starseed, and he had some pretty amazing experiences. So we had a bit of a chat, and he said, "Would you like to go up on a light ship? Would you like to experience meeting some of your extraterrestrial friends?" So I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So we jumped on a Zoom call, and we went into a meditation. Now, you know, now what I'll do is something at the end of this. I'm going to do something similar for you guys as well, because it's really effective, and I've used this with a lot of clients too. So we went into meditation. And we fell into the heart space. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've got a chakra system in our body, our main 7 chakras, and each one is like a portal. So our heart chakra is like a portal into the 5th dimension. So we went into the heart space, and I was in meditation. Obviously I was sitting there in Port Talbot, and he was in Chicago. And all of a sudden I was just like transported, and I was in a big open field. And as we walked down the field, there was a bright white light. And then as I was walking, so we walked towards the light. Jerome was with me as well. We walked into this bright white light. Like a control panel came up into the light. I was told to put my hand on there, and it kind of like read me. And then before you knew it, we were just lifting up very, very gently into this light ship. Now it did look a lot like that to me. More white colour, I guess, kind of silvery white. And as we kind of came up into the ship, into the loading area, there was a number of beings waiting for me. Now, what was really interesting is that when we went in, they said, "Welcome back, Commander." I was like, "Okay, whatever." And there was a mantis being on the ship as well. So Jerome had done this before, and you know, they introduced themselves to me. They showed me some of different areas of the ship. One of them, which was a med bed area where they do healing. There was another area which was kind of managing timelines, which sounds really bizarre, but there was a machine there where I could put my hands into it, and all of a sudden there was like these tubes, and they were like playing movie scenes, and they explained to me that these were all potential future realities that I could experience. And what they explained to me is that the more energy that we give to a future reality, it's like powering it up. So this is why it's so important to like be positive and think about our future, because we are literally manifesting our reality at all times. So there's a few timelines where I was like a drug addict and like a tramp or something, and there was other ones. But what was really interesting is one of the timelines was me standing here. So I just realised that looking at this hole. So this is one of the future timelines. So what we did, we closed down some of the low frequency timelines, and then raised more energy up on there, which was fascinating. And the next thing, so Jerome kind of assumed then that we would kind of go back down. This is what had normally happened. He'd had a couple of clients before experienced it, and they said, "Do you want to fly the ship?" So I was like, okay. So yeah, we went up to the helm area, and when I describe the ship, I'm sure you've had lots of people describing it, but it's almost like if Steve Jobs was designing something, you know, like an Apple kind of layout, everything's really kind of slick. There's no edges, there's no corners, it's just all smooth. It's like it's made out of one kind of thing, all kind of white. And we were sitting in this seat, and they said for me to put my hands onto either side, so I put my hands in. I kind of felt that something came down my head. I didn't look. I don't know whether it was just energy or whether a helmet came down. And as soon as I felt it connecting, it was like I was one with the ship. I could feel the ship. I could actually feel the edges of the ship. And they said, that's all you need to do is just think of a place to go. So I don't know why, but the first place that came to my mind was Antarctica. So, and literally as soon as I thought Antarctica, we were there. We were over the ice. It was just like, it was absolutely, I didn't know. The other interesting thing as well is that we were probably in this meditation for, I would say, about 40 minutes, but I must have been on there for about 4 or 5 hours. There was huge time dilation. It wasn't on at all. So we're flying over Antarctica, and as we kind of thought, oh, I wonder what the top bit looks like. So we were kind of flying over, and as we flew over, there was a massive hole at the top. And they said, why don't you go into the hole? So we flew into the hole, and we came out in like another kingdom. So have you guys ever heard of inner Earth theory or hollow Earth theory? So as we were flying round, it was like the mountains were massive. Like if you think of like Mount Everest, but like everything was twice as big. And I know this sounds far out, but they were giants, they were dragons. We flew through Shambhala, which looks like Tibet. So it was huge mountains with all these kind of temples up on there. And we were flying around. They explained that this was Shambhala. And they explained as well that Captain Byrd did an expedition in the 1940s where they actually went down. I don't know how far he actually got or whether to experience it. So the only thing I could find on there was this kind of diagram. Now it's not perfect, but it does kind of explain a lot of it. So you can see there's Shambhala on there, Agartha, Telos, there's other kind of areas on there too. So we kind of flew around this. We went to this temple in Telos, which was like where the holy violet flame was. So if I don't know if there's any healers here that have heard of the Calon the violet flame, but apparently from there. And they explained that there's billions and billions of life forms under there, including extraterrestrials. Now what they also explained is mantid beings, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Sirians, Lyrans. There's billions of them, and they're all under the planet. Now, the strange thing it was like light. So I was like, how is the daytime here? And it's like the middle is like a crystalline core, and it looks like the sun. It looks like the sun. It's almost like, if you can imagine, as you kind of went in, the gravity changes, and as you come in, you're just in. So it's like, I know it's hard to show in this diagram, but it's like the inside of the planet has got all mountains on, and different areas. And it's huge, it's absolutely massive. So we kind of flew out then, we went back, I came out, thanked the beings. They also offered upgrades to me, which looked like kind of sacred geometric patterns, which they kind of put into my energy field. They told me anytime that I wanted to go back to the light ship that I could, which was amazing. And when I came out then, I was just so blown away. I just was like, Jerome, like, what the hell, that was the most amazing experience I've had in my life. And he was like, me too, no one's ever flown the ship before. So I'm like, what? He really pushed his boundaries with that too. And so obviously I didn't know what I'd do with it after. I told my ex-girlfriend about it, and by the night time, I just had complete cognitive dissonance. I was like, that's not real. I couldn't handle what actually had happened. It was just too much. So I went into denial for about 3 or 4 weeks, where I didn't really talk to anyone about it. And then I got back in touch with Jerome, and he said, right, let's go back in again. So we went back in this time. So this is kind of what the med bed area was. Now, I explained to, when I went on there, they explained that I could use this med bed to heal people with. So they showed me how it works. Again, it's all by thought. And I sat on the med bed, felt some healing. It felt amazing. Felt all tingling in my body. My actual physical body was kind of like shaking a little bit while it was happening. And they said, bring clients up to do this. So the next day, as it happened, my ex's son had a bad skateboarding accident, and he dislocated his shoulder. He's kind of in a bit of a bad way. He was in hospital. So I was speaking to Jerome at the time, and he's like, "It's a great opportunity. Why don't you take him up on the med bed? Why don't you see what happens?" So that's what I did. So I went down into meditation. At the time he was in hospital, he wasn't actually talking to him. So I went down, I imagined that he was there with me, went back in the light ship, same kind of process, went up, put him on the med bed, and he was on there for about 40 minutes, and that kind of took him off. And the next day, he was completely healed from a dislocate. The doctors just could not understand what had happened. So yeah, that was my first encounter with that as well, and the other, I can go up on the light ship as many times as I want. One of the things I do is I take clients up on light ships if they're open to that kind of thing. And I started getting memories, galactic memories back of my previous lifetimes as well. So I started getting kind of flashes of times when I was in Arcturus, then Sirius, then moving across then to went down to the Pleiadian star system, and I had memories that I was like an avian being. So I had like small feathers. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the blue avians and things like that, but like a blue avian being with all small feathers over me, and I could shapeshift. So like all these memories coming in. Then I went across to the Lyran system, and then came down to Earth around the time of Atlantean times as a Pleiadian to help there. So again, if I'm doing another talk, I'll probably go into that in more detail there. But yeah, that was there. And what I found is actually they were activating my DNA. So we've got a number of strands of DNA, and through the work with me on the med bed and the teachings, I started to get way more psychic senses. My psychic powers became stronger. My healing abilities got stronger. And yeah, it was just absolutely amazing. Now, the thing with this was obviously, who do I tell about this kind of stuff? It's so difficult. Like I told my parents, and they just said, "You're absolutely mental." I haven't even told them I'm talking today because they're like, "We're going to disown you if you talk to people about this stuff." but it didn't. It actually happened. So yeah, so the types of services I offer then. So I can take people up on light ships for healing. I can also channel Pleiadian and Arcturian energy down, which is something I'd like to do with you all. I also can introduce people to their star families. One of the other gifts I have as well is I'm able to tell people where they're from. Now when I say where they're from, I know we've been all through star systems, but we tend to relate to certain star systems more than others. So for me, the Pleiadian star system was my favourite kind of set. When I say set of incarnations, I'm talking eons of time. And then moved down. One thing I should have said actually was that one of the first, when I actually got into the Akashic Records, one of the first questions I had was, how many lifetimes have I lived on Earth? Can anyone have a guess how many lifetimes that we've all lived on Earth? I kind of thought it'd be kind of like 10, yeah? Any raise on 10?
5?
No?
Thousands.
4.7 million. I've incarnated 4.7 million on this planet alone. And I can sense it now that you have all been here billions and billions of lifetimes too. So that's how long we've kind of been here, So it's all about getting used to being human. And a lifetime is literally a blink of an eye. It really is. It's no time at all. When you actually look at galactic time, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So although it sounds like a lot, you know, it's very quick. So I take people up on night ships. I do healing on them, which has been very successful too. Also as part of my shamanic work as well, I can take you to, because there's different realms. There's lower realms, medium realms, and higher realms. All this kind of stuff here, because it's high dimensional, are higher realms. But equally, I can take you down to the lower realms, which isn't like hell or anything. It's just where your spirit animals are. A lot of shamanistic work goes on there, a lot of basic stuff. The middle realms is where your kind of normal guides are. So usually relatives, past relatives, family members that have gone over, and then the upper realms as well there. In the upper realms too, then you have like Archangel Metatron, Yeshua, Jesus, and those type of people. So anyone does kind of Reiki, when they call in those energies, they're using the energy from them too. At the time. So co-creating with the ETs. So obviously they've been kind of speaking to me now for a number of years, and one of the things that they started talking to me about was scalar waves. Has anyone heard of scalar waves? Scalar wave frequency? So scalar waves was something that was discovered by Nikola Tesla, and they're like a carrier wave that's operating at a certain frequency. Now I've actually got a scalar wave machine on that table over there. They helped me kind of discover that. They told me how it kind of worked. They put me in touch with a Slovenian scientist that was making these devices. So they do them in America. They're called a Swoopy 2, and they're thousands and thousands of pounds. And working with a scientist in Slovenia, I was able to get that for like 400 or 500 quid. Now, I also, so as part of the scalar, it holds a frequency. So I'm actually putting like 500 hertz healing frequencies through the scalar wave, and it's actually healing everywhere. So it's got a huge, although you can't see it, it's like Wi-Fi, but it's healing. And that's sending a frequency out to everyone here. Now I actually had that in the wellness show as well. So as you sit in here, you're all getting healed. So you might feel a little bit of tingling or some high whining in your ears, but that is all through to the scalar device. And I actually use scalar healing for my clients as well when they come over. Very similar technology to the med beds actually, and it's literally just starting. There's a guy on Instagram called the Black Airbender, and I've started following him the last couple of months, and he's amazing too. He uses scalar frequencies and explains the value of it and breath work and how that works too. So the other thing is the reason, I guess you can ask, how did I find out about Fire the Grid, is because they pointed me in that direction. So they said that there was a woman called Samoya who needed help. So I contacted her, and she said, "Oh, amazing, I was expecting you," which is very strange. I was like, "Oh, I got like beings." Well, I got like beings too. So we kind of helped up. We got on really well. She told her story, and I've been helping them run their IT, as I said before. So the other thing, this is kind of more Jerome, but that logo there is Suspended Solutions. So one of his first contacts he had with the Arcturians, they're explaining about Ormus. So I'm not sure if anyone have heard of Ormus, but it's basically something that was used in ancient Egypt. And they don't know how the Egyptians actually did that, probably through advanced technology. But you take kind of water from the Dead Sea, and it goes through a process where it abstracts out kind of key minerals, which is called monatomic gold. It's like before gold's created, and you can drink it. So the Egyptians were always, all the pharaohs were taking Ormus, and it improves connectivity in your brain. It allows for higher vibration, frequency. Now in everyone's goodie bags, you'll see a little sachet, and in the sachet there's some Ormus in there. Now you are welcome, it's perfectly safe, there's nothing wrong with it at all, and it does taste a little bit fishy, I'll say. But I kind of take it every day, and it really, really helps with meditation, it helps with lucid dreaming, with all these things too. So yeah, so I've been working with Jerome on that. I also sell that stuff too as well, so if anyone's interested, I know there's a voucher in there too, but you can contact me directly if you want. I think it's £30 a bottle, but it's $35 to buy it directly from the US, so I think that's a bit of a bargain on there as well. And the other thing really is about co-create, so the wellness show came about, and my intuition guided me to do this show. Another time, obviously, there was a lot of, we had just come out of lockdown, people's mental health was, like through the floor, suicide rates were up, and I just really wanted to help people, because I wasn't in a good place myself, and I realised how beneficial the likes of meditation, breath work, yoga, and that kind of stuff is as well. So I wanted to do a show, and I just finished completing my shamanism training, and the shaman trainer got in touch with me and said, "Oh, I run a wellness show. Do you want to buy it off me?" So I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So I thought, yeah. So I bought we paid for the wellness show, took over the page and things, and as soon as that happened, I started having people contacting me to be part of the wellness show, which sounds a bit mad. So one of the first people that I got in touch with me, so I had a call, say, "Are you free? I'm interested in attending." A guy called Brian Wood. I was like, I've never heard Brian Wood. Who is this guy? I jumped on the call, and there was this like absolutely beautiful man from LA who's like got like 4 or 5 million followers. He's really big into the wellness. He said, "Oh, this is really strange." He said, "I had a dream, and you were in my dream, and I just realised I really wanted to be part of something in the UK, and can I attend your wellness show?" And this is how I had people from all over the world attend the show, because they all came to me. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to phone round, I had, for those that attended, obviously it was some amazing speakers, people from LA, from Chicago, all over the world attended. Yeah, it was a great success. It really was. I think over 800 people attended, and yeah, it was really special. Now we did do, me and Jerome did talk about it, but I didn't really go into any of my own ET experiences apart from what Jerome said and there too. So yeah, that was the wellness show. So how are we doing for time now? Again, there's a lot of experiences I could go on. Again, not just Pleiadians and Arcturians. I get lots of different beings coming through to me. Some I don't want to interact with. So one of the things the Arcturian said is that you have to just feel into how you feel about these beings. I had some beings that kind of just looked like Sasquatch. They were kind of like Bigfoot type style. I didn't really resonate with them, but I have had contact with the Syrians and the Lyrans. The Lyrans is quite an interesting story. So they came through to me a couple of weeks ago, and before it happens, I got a sense that something's going to go on, and I was just sitting in my living room, and all of a sudden I just had this rush of energy, and it felt, like a cat rubs against your leg and purrs. It was like that, but my whole body, it was just like a noise. I was just like, oh my god. And then these most beautiful cat beings, so Lyrans are cat beings, they appeared to me, and I just had to stop from wanting to pet them because they were just so cute. It's like humanoid with a cat face. There was children there as well, which were amazing. One thing I should have said, actually, sorry, is that when I was actually talking to the mantid beings, they told me that the being that I'd actually got in touch with was a child mantid being, because mantid beings are between 7 and 12 foot tall. So I don't think I'd be able to handle. It was bad enough seeing a 5 foot one, but yeah, that's where they did that on purpose, and they did it. It almost felt like it was meant to happen. Before that experience with the mantid, Lorna, again, my ex, she was kind of quite psychic. She said, "I can see insect legs." She's like, "I can see insect legs in my mind's eye." And at the time, I was like, "That's really weird." So it was like kind of almost giving a bit of a warm up that something was going to happen that night. And yeah, that really changed me. So what I just wanted to talk about is some of the key teachings that they went over, because it's really, I think it'll help everyone. So one of them is the power of the word. So everything we say and think affects our reality. Every single thing. So you think how we talk to ourselves. We can be negative, we say, "Oh, you're an idiot," and those things. That actually affects everything. I got a slide as well to show you how what words do to water. But you know, when you realise we are manifesting, so when we wake up in the morning and we go, oh God, I hope this isn't a terrible day. You know, the universe doesn't understand negatives. It only understands positives. So when we say, I hope we don't have I hope we don't have a bad day, the universe interprets it as having a bad day. You know, we are actually creating a reality all the time. Now that's not to say, when we sign up for this, you know, we have a soul contract, we agree on what we want to experience before we incarnate on Earth. So certain things that we can't avoid. However, you know, we have got free will a lot of the time, and it's how we approach those things. You know, and personally, in changing how I talk, in changing how I kind of express myself, it makes a big difference. This is where manifestation comes in. Like a lot of people will say, wow, what a coincidence that's happened. Well, you know, we're manifesting a reality all the time. So you know, when we're talking, I say everything's easy all the time. This is so easy, everything's so easy. Because it does change how it's your perspective on things. But if we think something's hard or difficult, then, you know, people say hexing, you know, and manifesting. You know, a hex really is when you say something's going to go wrong, or when we worry all the time. It has a massive effect on everything. So power of the word is really, really important. The next concept is as above, so below. So with that, you know, our internal world affects our outside world. So they say as above, so below in magical terms all the time. But what it actually means is that outside of ourselves, we're in like a mirror reality, and everything we see outside ourselves is actually a direct translation of what's going on inside us. So if we look at it, if something really annoys you, and you see something, you go, oh God, I hate that, yeah? Unfortunately, you do that too. And that triggers a lot of people to find that out, that the things that annoy you are things that you've done yourself. So again, this is why healing is so important. This is why doing the inner work is so important. It's why they say that. And why loving yourself is so important is because the universe will only love you as much as you love yourself. And the way I see that is it's like having a cup. Imagine there's an ocean, infinite ocean of love out there, and if you have a thimble full of love for yourself, you can only fill up from that lake, from that kind of small thimble. The more love we have for ourselves, the more love we have, and the more love will show us. But we don't realise that we're in a universe where that's happening. So we're constantly, you know, and someone, you know, hating on myself all the time, you know, and doing those things and not having love for myself, and wondering why the world wasn't showing me that. You know, even my kind of relationships and things, you know, I had a number of abusive relationships previously. It's because I didn't like myself. So what the universe gave me was what I wanted. And I think if we all can realise that, you know, how important our inner state is, this is where healing comes in. And now literally, you know, so I teach Reiki, and the number of people where just after having a Reiki attunement and realising how powerful they are, their life changes completely. I've had people where just after one kind of Reiki level 1, their whole life has changed. You know, they have friends fallen off, ex-friends, because they're kind of there, and as soon as you change your inner state, you'll find your outside world will change as well. The other thing they taught me as well is that we are more powerful than you can ever imagine, and we're always perfect. Now, I'm not saying that from an egotistical perspective, but we've all got to accept that we're perfect now, because the only now moment is the only thing that exists. And only from the place of full acceptance of ourselves we can change. So I'm not sure if anyone's tried to lose weight or do anything like that, but previously my weight's fluctuated throughout the years. You know, I've done it from a place of lack, from a place of I will be happy when I'm thin, and that just causes huge amounts of resentment. You know, so we always accept yourself fully. I know, so it's about loving you. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's loving yourself, accepting yourself completely, and then you can make a change. Because, you know, we are. So I thought that was really good teaching. As you said, we're in a third density mirror reality. We're in a polar, you know, they have polar opposites. So a lot of people say, oh, why is there evil in the world? It's because there's good in the world. It's the yin and yang. You always have that kind of two aspects. You can't be a hero unless there's a villain. You can't have, you know, black without white. You know, and again, this mirror reality idea that everything in our outside kind of reality is a reflection of our inner state, which we don't realise. And, you know, we can cause kind of so much suffering in our lives as well then. The other thing they said is that they do not want to be worshipped or treated like gods. They're a star family and they see us as brother and sister. When I first started having interactions with these guys, I couldn't stop crying because they are so high vibrational. You have never experienced love like it. You have never experienced love like it. It's so overwhelmingly powerful. I just burst into tears, and even now, I'll probably be crying later. It's just how it happens, you know. So, and in early times, you know, when they did come, you know, there were some memories of Atlantean times when we were trying to teach people about things. They would ask us, you know, are you God? And they would say, yes, we are, because we're all connected. We are all one. We are all the sons and daughters of God. That was the kind of teachings from the Bible. It's not that Jesus was the only person. We all are. We're all there too. And they see that too. So there's a lot of misinterpretation of that. They're also aware that they did kind of, there's a rule now of kind of non-interference, which is why we don't see so much contact. That's why they're not walking around us right now. It's because we're growing and evolving, and we have to do that on our own. That's not to say that they won't help us, or that they will, you know, that they'll come to us and give us ideas if we ask for help. But, you know, this is why that isn't happening. And the other thing they're kind of saying as well is that we are, the reason that they're coming through to me, and the reason that all this is happening, is that full ET contact is going to happen at some point soon. They even assure me that I'll be able to go back to the Pleiadian star system at some point in this lifetime. So I don't know what that means, but they said physical in my body to do that too. So yeah, so you know, it's an incredible experience to do that. And what's one of the things I hope you all say for the meditation after is because they all want to connect with you. They're all really keen to do that. So through this kind of short meditation, and I'll be using kind of some light language. I'm not sure if any of you heard a light language, but it's just like a download. I might be singing, hopefully not. They use my voice box as well, but what that will do is just activate everyone to be able to contact them in the future. And that's why they're so, like, I can see them now, they're jumping around, and they're in this room, they're with us now, we just can't see them. So they're really keen to connect with you and start co-creating yourselves. The other final thing is your imagination is so important. We're always taught that it's just imagination, it's all in our heads, but you know, it's not imagination. Imagination and intuition are two sides of the same coin. They really are. So, you know, when we're imagining something, we're actually creating it into our reality as well. If you can't imagine something, how can it exist? So this is why whether it's in manifestation or even this now, you know, I imagined that it would go well. Because if I imagined that there was something wrong would happen, then I'd manifest that too. So, you know, your imagination, if anyone's done healing as well, it's usually your imagination is where you're doing it. When you're using your imagination, you're creating something in the astral, which then creates into the physical. So, everyone, we enjoy your break. So yes, just this is as a recap, because I know that it sounds really simple, but a lot of the time things are, you know, so. Power of the word is really important, how we express ourselves and say things, because we are manifesting our reality. As above, so below, you know, which is the fact that everything inside us is reflected outside of us. And the other point for me, so I think when I deal with a lot of clients, one of the kind of pitfalls I think is it's very easy to fall into victim mentality, and victimhood is a very low kind of frequency. It can also lead to like narcissism and those things as well. So when you realise that everything that's kind of happening you've signed up for, plus you're creating your reality. For me personally, I could no longer be the victim, because I was like, well, I've created this reality, or everything that's in my reality is teaching me a lesson. You know, so everything is perfect. You know, you think the world's kind of on a higher teaching level, everything that's happened over the last couple of years is to help us to ascend, is to help us to wake up to the nature of reality and what's going on. It's not like anything's changed, it's been going on for thousands of years. You know, but getting out to that victimhood mentality, because again, it keeps us low, it keeps our vibration low. You know, I'm not going into too kind of conspiratorial stuff, you know, but I think this is why the news and everything that's on, you know, holds so much fear, because it keeps us from stepping into our power a lot of the time. So another interesting thing that happened to me when this happened, when I came down from the light ship, was I was contacted by a number of, I guess you could say, secret societies. And I would get a phone call, and it was all a withheld number, and they were saying, we sense that you're ready to join our mission, and we're doing these certain things. And they just contacted me out of nowhere. So I don't even know how they did that, whether they can sense that kind of thing as well. I got contacted by a few Masons who said we could really do with your services, because obviously I could remote view and do astral travel as well. So yeah, as an aside, that was really, really strange. Obviously we're multi-dimensional beings, and this, when the beings talk to me, they always say, source energy creators, because we are source energy creators. We're all like one with wherever you say source or God. There's no, when we say being one with, it's realising that we're the whole thing. I'm just standing here in a room talking to a lot of people who are me. Everything is, including extraterrestrials. They're all you. Like, I was going up onto the light ship, and I was like, well, guys, haven't you got something better to do? Like, what, you just waited for me to turn up. And they're like, well, no, we're multidimensional. And the more people call them, the more powerful they get, because it's like, so if you see like in Indian culture, you see a lot of the deities, which is interesting, by the way. So whenever you see like Krishna, he's blue, isn't he? I wonder why he's blue. He's probably not from this planet. And they're also depicted with multiple arms, and the reason they're multiple arms is because they're multi-dimensional, and they can be in many places at once, unlimited number of places at once. And we're moving into this, as we're moving into this higher frequency. The other thing that was quite interesting to explain to me as well is that the higher frequency beings help the lower frequency beings. But like, I haven't dealt with anyone above the 9th dimension, above the Arcturians. And they're ascending as well. So everyone is on this ascension path. They are still learning things and helping us too. So they don't know what the 10th dimension is like at all. And they've got 10th dimensional beings helping them, and 11th dimensional beings helping them. And it's like the whole universe is going to go, whoop, and we're all going to pop up into a higher kind of order. And that is what the nature of life is. We just keep on popping up to the 12th dimension, and then we go right back down to the beginning, and we start again. Because what else is there to do but exist? I'm not sure if you've heard of Dr. Emoto. I use this slide when I teach Reiki, just to show how important words are. So in this experiment, Dr. Emoto took glasses of water in soundproof rooms, and someone was, they would say a word to it a couple of times, and then they'd freeze the water, and they would look at the crystalline structure of the water. So as you can see, nice words like thank you, wisdom, truth, eternal, angels, I love you, peace, are all kind of like symmetrical. They're all like perfect geometrical shapes. But when we say words like you fool, you make me sick, evil, it kind of distorts the water. So if you think that we are 70-80% water, how we speak to ourselves actually affects the structure of our body. And a lot of illness, so I don't think illness is just, I think it's a multi-pronged attack from my experience. You can do healing someone on a spiritual level, but also obviously make sure you've got the nutrients in your body, that you're doing exercise and moving. But how we speak to ourselves and things affects that. And my understanding is, when we hold trauma in our body, it affects how the cells kind of interact. Now DNA, as I understand, are like little antennas. But when there's a field around it of negativity, they can't connect to, like a lot of ants all know what they're doing. It's the same with our cells. When there's that disconnection from there, that's where inflammation, that's where illness comes about. So when I do healing on someone, or put them on the med bed, or even that Scalar machine, what that's doing, that's perfectly kind of form patterns at a certain frequency as well. That then, so I'm not healing anyone, you're healing yourselves. I'm just giving the cells the best chance of healing itself, because we've all got amazing immune systems. So, this is really about the power of the word. Now obviously, meeting with you guys, I'm sure you're all keen to, and I'm sure you all have had your own kind of ET experiences, hopefully not too bad, or any anal probing, but how do you manifest your own ET experience? So what they've said is to do with your imagination. And it's not just going, okay, what's going to happen? it's how do you feel about that situation. So how would it feel if a number of Arcturians just appeared in your bedroom one evening? Now some of you might be, that's terrifying, but it's an amazing experience, but you have to really get into the feeling of what that's like. So if you do want to manifest these experiences with different ET, which again after the meditation today you will probably be getting a lot more experiences, you can manifest that. You know, I'm sure you're kind of aware of like the C5 Stephen Greer's experience. You know, where they are using meditation, and you know they're able to, I think they kind of imagine that they're from, you know, like a picture of you in the star system, and you go down and down and down to where you are to attract these beings. So really that's the key to it. You know, just imagine and don't hold on to an outcome. Just be open to having a situation. The universe will never give you exactly what you ask for, as in, you know, don't be too precise. So if you even just think of a feeling, then it'll happen in the most kind of abundant way. Like actually thinking back, I did think I was kind of like, it'd be so cool to have an ET experience, and I think really that's how the manted being came to existence, is because I allowed that then into my future reality by, you know, going like, wow, that was really cool. I didn't realise at the time, you know, I didn't even realise I were ETs. But, you know, so if you do want to do this, imagination is really important, and the more open you are to it. The other thing I'll say is that they've got the most crazy sense of humour. Like really, like they're really rude. They like do loads of jokes and stuff like that. It's like they are absolutely hilarious. And they always say to me all the time, they're like, oh my god, you humans take things so seriously. This is meant to be play. This is meant to be like a playground where we learn and having fun, but obviously it's quite hard down here, and we take things very seriously. So yeah, they say just lighten up a lot of the time. So I think we're ready to do the live demonstration of connecting to the galactic energy, if everyone's willing to. Obviously it's up to you, free will universe. If you're welcome to take part. If you don't, that's fine too. So what I'm going to do, I just need to get my phone a sec. So they've helped me manifest this, and the first part of this, again, thinking back to the power of the word, I want you to repeat after me what I'm saying, because what I'm going to be saying will help release a lot of the energy and stuff that we hold. So it's about releasing fear, realising our divine power. That's going to give us our best chance then to connect in. So we start off with that. Again, I'll be telling you what to do. Use your imagination. So obviously you can take some breathing, kind of with the eyes closed. Listen to my voice, just follow what I'm saying. And then I'll be connecting that through. What I'll do then, they're kind of telling me now that I'll probably be kind of doing some light language, so don't be scared if no one's heard light language before. They're just channeling through me, and that kind of the sound coming out of that is like a download, and it affects our body. As an aside, one thing I forgot to mention, so obviously I'm quite close with Jerome, and Jerome's doing this as well in Chicago, is that we're working with scientists to do a test where, obviously because of DNA sequencing, is that because the work we're doing is affecting the DNA, is to take a sample of the DNA pre-work and a sample of the DNA after we've done the work to see if there's differences. Because we always think that DNA is, you know, fixed, but it's not. We can change our DNA, we can change it. It changes by our belief systems. And from my experience with the clients and everything, we'll find this, but obviously we need proof. So that's what we're working with these. We're working with some scientists to do different tests really to see if that changes. Now on DNA, we do inherit. We think at the point of conception, and they've proven this through studies with mice. At the point of conception, all the things that your parents have learned, your fears, your traumas, is passed down to the next generation. Now they did quite a horrific experiment with mice where they had them all on an electrical sheet, and they sounded a certain specific noise and electrocuted them, and they did that for their whole life. And then they let them have children, and then they let them have children, not doing any of this experiment, 7-8 generations down, and then when they played that sound, the mice reacted as if they were expecting an electric shock, which I feel is proof then that those things happen. which is so hard, really. This is why it's so difficult for us, because we've got generations. When people say about doing healing, ancestral healing, it's because all the lessons that we've learned, good or bad, are being passed down to us. The sins of the fathers pass on to the son. It's literal. So if you've had, and this is probably why people are naturally scared of, don't know why you're scared of a snake. It's probably because generations and generations before, then that's kind of passed down. So anyway, I digress. Let me just get my phone 2 seconds. Okay, so if you just kind of sit, make sure your back's kind of straight in the seat, okay, and just relax, just take a couple of big deep breaths, and really the important thing with this is just to allow, because it's a free will universe, and you can not do this if you just don't want to, okay, so just relax, a couple of big deep breaths for me, and if you just repeat this after me. I now void and nullify all contracts, agreements, karmic ties and debts. Release and come off me now. I let go of all guilt, shame and fear. Release and come off me now. Excellent. I let go of all pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Release and come off me now. I forgive myself completely for all actions that caused me harm. Release and come off me now. I offer forgiveness for all who have wronged and harmed me. I call my power back from all times and all places. I am my own. I am divinely protected. I am love. I am incredible and perfect just the way I am. Happiness and abundance is my divine right. And so it is. So it's interesting as you do that, how you felt saying those things, because sometimes it can feel quite challenging to say those things. It kind of goes against it, and it feels a bit icky when we do that too. Okay, so we'll start then. So again, just a couple of big deep breaths, keeping your eyes closed, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just relax, relax, relax. A couple of big deep breaths in and out. I'd just like you to imagine now that from your tailbone there's white hot roots coming out and going deep, deep, deep into the ground, grounding you. So just imagine now that there's deep roots going down into the ground, wrapping around the core, Mother Gaia 3 times anti-clockwise. Okay, now calling in light from Arcturus and Pleiadian star systems. And just imagine there's a white pillar of light opening now in your body and just opening your heart. Just imagine your heart opening, expanding out in 6 feet in all directions. Okay, so I feel the Pleiadian energy starting to come in now. So the energy's coming down through the room, okay, so I can see it as like a golden colour. Now the Pleiadians really are all about fun. If you imagine what it feels like to be a child on Christmas Day, it just feels magical, it feels exciting, it feels creative, it's fun, they're very, very childlike. And this energy is just flowing through. Now you might feel tingle in your body, you might be seeing something in your third eye vision. You might just feel completely relaxed, but just allow this to happen now. I can know that Arcturian energy is coming down to all of you, and the Arcturian energy is like blue in colour, and it is kind of like precise, technological. They're very logical thinkers, more kind of masculine, and just allow their energy to come in. Okay, just sit there, keep on breathing and relaxing. Sukua muyala kuno kushutua ya kana boko yesa kana kakuri ya shumwenya na sukua ya na chukuka yesa ne kana kukana mwa siela la chukua ni kana ya sopwa kana suela kana yamwa na kana no Sukule mwani kukuye shuchukwa kwa yanana suekna ya kukule mwani na duchukuye sichikia kwa kuna siklele kumwani na shuchukwa kanya sa kiniwe puknuye pukuye shuapwa. Just breathe that in. I hope you can feel something now. And when you're ready, just kind of open your eyes, just relax. So for those who did that, did anyone sense or feel anything? Did anyone have any sensations, anything going on? Yeah?
Sensation around the third eye. And I think it's probably that, but I've had sensations around my head most of the night, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no worries. Anyone else have any... Jocelyn? Calmness. Yeah. Now, it's almost like what this does is just connects you. So in the future, if you are meditating, you just call in, you say, I call in the Arcturian Council. Now, hopefully you've had a sense of, because the way you kind of distinguish is that the energy feels different for each thing. You know, and once you know that, you can kind of go, oh, that's it. Now, obviously, if you are kind of into this, then you can ask questions and go, what, is this energy, where this energy from? If you're fortunate, you'll be able to see something, maybe you'll see a being, you kind of sense them there. But in doing that, like a lot of the time, people don't know what to expect, and sometimes when they are working, it does feel like it's just your intuition, but it just feels this kind of higher. They'll never be telling you what to do, by the way. They'll never do that. It's free will. When I asked them, I was like, what's happening next? When's the ship's landing? When is this going on? They were like, we don't know. You tell us. You're the one creating your reality. We're all creating this co-creation together. We're all like living this dream that is this planet. So it depends on how we do that, how that goes. So anyone else? Anything else you can ask? Hello there.
I saw a colour triangle.
Okay, excellent. Now that's the thing, they'll tend to show you shapes and images. In the first, it'll be quite slow. It's like a relationship, really. They'll start off slowly because they don't overwhelm you. Sometimes I can see them, sometimes I can hear them, sometimes they just come in my dreams. I've had a number of dreams where they've come through to me. So yeah, so that's amazing. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to share? Hello there.
In my imagination, I just focus in. I had someone coming up and put a crown of light on me, on my head, and it just very quick and it just gone.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and what that means is that you're sovereign. Like that's a sign that we're all kings and queens of this reality, really. And that's what they want us to realise. That it's almost. I got an analogy they said to me once, was that. Because it's like, why did you come down? Why aren't you coming down to help us? It's like, please, like, this is horrible, I'm not enjoying time here. And they're saying that it's only through what we're going through makes us strong. So, for example, if you've got a bird, and a bird obviously breaks out of the shell, if you open the shell up and let the bird come out, it'd be very weak. It needs that resistance, it needs to fight its way out to give it enough strength to operate in the world. And really, we're all in that. We're all in this egg. We're all in this incubator here and we're all learning what it's like to be powerful. And obviously it takes more time to manifest things here. But can you imagine how much damage we do in a higher dimension if we were manifesting our thoughts all the time? It would be complete chaos. So, so this is we're practicing this now. So when we're ready, then we can go to the next dimension, because we can create a reality. The other thing they've told me as well is that at a higher dimensional, we choose. We don't age. We choose how long we live. The Pleiadians that are coming through, they look like teenagers. They don't look like old at all. They look about sort of 18, 19 years old, because they choose to look like that. They can look like what they want. And then when they decide, it's really after a couple of 100 years, and they want to change, then they'll go. But there's no fear of death, because we're eternal beings. And really, these are just vehicles that we're in. And when our body goes, whenever that is, it's the most amazing experience. Only the other night they were explaining to me, that really birth is the hardest thing, because we were in this very safe room, and we, everything's lovely and it's calm and it's nice, and we can hear our mother's voice, and then all of a sudden things start getting uncomfortable. And this is where we are now. There's an analogy that things are quite uncomfortable at the moment, and because we're ready to be birthed. But everything is there. The planet is moving up, we are moving up, everything is. And they talk about the higher field. It's already there. And we are just, once we let go of the trauma, once we forgive ourselves, then we can move into that field. So it's really up to us. It's really up to us, and this is why I'd highly recommend doing the healing work, looking at your own trauma and releasing everything, because there's no judge. I've got a lot of previous memories coming back, which I could talk all day about. So I remember dying a number of times, millions of times, and it's the most beautiful experience. Some people say that the point of death is like the final orgasm, because what an orgasm is a release, isn't it? You let it go. And that's what it feels like. It's like Randar says, it's like taking off a tight shoe. It's like we're all genies in a bottle. We're all like really, really, really tight, we're in this tiny, tiny space. And when we're in our mother's womb, well, our soul comes in and out all the time, and it's unpleasant to be in here, because it's so confined, it's so restricted. So, you can take, you realise you can just enjoy life. There's nothing to fear with death. There's absolutely nothing to fear from death, and I'm talking from personal experience on that too as well. Which is good to know, because obviously we live in a lot of fear. Especially in the West, death is something that's kind of hidden away from us, and it's all scary. But in the East and stuff, it's it's just a normal part of life. Life and death happens. We are in shamanism. They say that these aren't our bodies. We're borrowing these bodies from Mother Earth. They aren't ours, and at the end we give them back. But once we've learned our experiences. So, question time. Anyone want to ask any questions?
Hundreds.
I'm sure.
When you talk about us coming back, you're talking our soul, spirit, yeah?
Yeah.
Reincarnate through.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
There's so many questions, but I'll just
yeah.
someone else.
It really is. There's loads and loads. There's loads and loads to it. Yeah. So from my experiences. So again, maybe this is for the next talk I do in July and things like that. But kind of the snippets is that I remember being in Atlantean times, and the technology there was so advanced. We used AI. So AI was used, and it went terribly wrong. And we look like we're in this loop pattern again, where potentially we're going to give power to AI, and it'll just destroy everything. I do think the Terminator and things like that was an Arthur C. Clarke was onto something when he said that, but it absolutely is. So the reason for the fall of Atlantis was the use of technology and AI, and it just sent everything back into the Dark Ages. What else was going on there? After Atlantean times, a lot of beings moved into Egypt. So I got some of the flashbacks I had. One memory that I had this laser device, and I was doing etchings into a wall in Egypt using a laser, which was quite, the technology used was absolutely amazing. The pyramids were like obviously on meridian lines and energy grids. It was very healing, and a lot of the time going into the pyramid was an awakening experience where a person would walk into it, and given the resonance and the side and obviously the shape of the pyramid, allowed people to enlighten and to realise who they really were. So, any other questions?
I saw it was a remote viewing thing about Egypt, and it was Dick Allen and Daz Smith were the two men who did the remote viewing. They talked about a being that was kind of looking after these clones, and they were the ones who actually built the pyramids. It sounded crazy, but I know that sort of like remote viewing is quite, it's been proved to be really accurate and stuff. I don't know if you know anything about that. And the mantis being was the one that was like the sort of like the eternity nurse or something or other in this clone kind of like clinic.
Yeah. Well, when we say
does that sound?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Clones and things like that could be were they creating their beings and stuff like that, and using genetics and things to create beings. What was I going to say on that? So from what they explained with the pyramids and stuff is sound resonance. So there's certain experiments where at a certain frequency it can make things levitate. So a lot of the blocks and things were moved there. I was actually spent a bit of time in the Preseli Mountains, and I talked to the Fae and the Earth Elementals, and they were saying that that's how they moved the stones from Preseli Mountains to Stonehenge, used sound resonance, like trumpets, which they blew, like 7 or 8, 9 of them, and that just raises it off the ground enough, and it was just easy then just to push it through. Obviously still a huge amount of effort, but that's how they did it, apparently. So, thank you. There's a question over there? Yeah, hi.
Well, I'm glad you said you got a sense of humour. Apart from that, it's not a question. Where do the greys and other species fit into it?
My understanding is that the greys are clones. Like when Star Wars. Apparently, Star Wars is like was created as a memory from the Lyran Wars, I believe. And what we see as clones in there are like greys. So they haven't really got any, they don't think for themselves. They are hive mind in exactly the same way as reptiles are hive mind, and this is where the Orion collectives are. So interestingly, I asked the question, I was like, okay, you are brothers and sisters, Arcturians and Pleiadians, why are you allowing this to happen? Why are you allowing, because this AI is like a dark force, it's not part of God or source, so you could say that it's, like Luciferian or whatever that is. And why do you let it happen? And they said because it wakes people up. That's why they let it happen. So, and this is happening on many, many different star systems where they're helping us. It's because they get to the point where they'll try and take it over. What's interesting as well is that after my first experience in 2019, I had this dream, and it was the most real thing I've ever seen. It was like I woke up and I was just in a sweat. I couldn't believe it. We were all slaves. We literally were all walking around, and then these like reptile overlords were whipping us, and we were all in kind of sheets like that, and like you were there, Dar, and like my parents were there. We were all like in chain gangs like that, and they were whipping us, and they were digging for and mining for gold and stuff like that. And it was almost like that was a previous potential reality that would have happened.
That is what's happening. The commercial chattels.
Well, yes, exactly. I think so too. I think it was,
Reptilians are in Downing Street.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Well, we all pay taxes. You're all paying taxes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For what?
But what's going to happen is as we are, and they know this because they can't stop this happening, is as we're ascending, in a higher dimensional plane, fear doesn't exist. It can't exist. Separation doesn't exist. So they are literally clinging on as long as they possibly can because it's not going to, it's not going to affect. And obviously, because we realise we're manifesting reality, the future reality I see is one where there's complete peace on Earth, and we can co-create with the ETs too.
The contracts have got to end.
Yes, but contracts we can end now. You just ended contracts doing that there. We're always in contracts. It's not like you've got to do anything particular. Just release the contract. It's a verbal agreement. We're in a world of contracts. Even like a police officer comes up to us and says, do you understand? Do you stand under my authority? We're always getting into contracts.
No, we understand. That's the point.
Understand, exactly, yeah. So just change your language. You can release, you can free yourself. It's like I had something through before, and I said that, we're not chained in at all. We're free, really. It's just we don't realise we're still in things.
Social engineering.
Yes, exactly. So, thanks a lot. Anything else? Hello.
Hi. There seems to be, and you're proof of it, upsurges in the interest of starseeds and ET races, which of course have been around for a long time, but there's definitely like a resurgence, I would say. So now that you've had all these experiences and you're connecting with these other beings, where do you personally, because obviously you're on the, you know, you've hit the wave now with these beings, where would you like to be, or where do you see just you going? I mean, because we're all on our different levels and we've all got our own experiences, so I just wonder what you're hoping to happen now going forward in your own life with these beings.
Yeah. One thing that, you know, just in talking about this stuff is to raise awareness. You know, so it's just to normalise these conversations. Ultimately, I do believe that it's there, and you can imagine at the moment if they kind of start appearing, because people think that these higher dimensional beings will be coming down in ships. There are some ships, obviously, from lower dimensional, but an Arcturian can just walk into your living room, like just appear in your living room. They can appear anywhere. So I feel like it's really, I obviously would love to have full contact. I'd love to have them around us to help us. They're so high vibrational. So I think it's just really, in doing this talk, and even what you guys are doing, like you guys are helping this thing, you know, that more and more experiences happen and people start thinking, like, oh wow, maybe there is something else. You know, it says, I think like Ronald Reagan said, didn't he, when on his leaving speech, that if extraterrestrials showed themselves, it would cause world peace. Because one thing for me, you know, once you come face to face with a mantis being, well, you know, everyone is like, when you see another human, it's like, wow, we're so similar. When you realise how varied it is, you know, and so many different beings. At one time, there was like a group of beings came through and they looked like Yoda. Like, they actually looked like Yoda. You know, so obviously this is like, you know, it's the amount of beings that are incredible. You know, and when you think as well, the other misconception is that you think of these solar systems, the Pleiadian system in particular is seven planets. The planet I lived on mainly was Error. There's so many species on this planet. So although the typical, you would say, oh yeah, Pleiadians are blonde hair and they look like humans, there's loads and loads of races on there. They just, a lot of the evolved collectives, you know, happen to be humanoid. But obviously, when I was there, I was an avian being. So you know, there's so many differences to that too. So
do you think that species actually genetically made the species?
Yes, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Our DNA, you know, so our DNA holds everything, every blueprint, because we're all fractals of the universe. Every being in the whole universe can be made from our own DNA. It's the whole instruction. It's like the whole.
They went through time, Neanderthals fell away because that was the technology used for that type of creation.
Yes.
At that point. And now we are where we are because an AI now is coming in.
Yeah.
Steve Austin, isn't it? We will build it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I think I do. So they did mention that they did interfere before, and it went all wrong. And I do believe that was when, however they did, when they put the species of man on there. I think we're evolving so quickly we can't really keep up with what's happening, which is why I feel everything feels so difficult. Because you know, it's normally evolution happens over millions and millions of years. You think how much humans have been like a tiny fraction of time. So it's almost like they're speeding things up for some reason.
I was going to say, do you think time is getting faster?
Time is actually getting, yes, it is. There's also going to be a polar shift. So the Earth is shifting poles as well. So I'm not sure if you've heard anyone talk about that before. The other interesting thing they said as well, if you imagine the sun is like a projector screen, like this here.
Hologram.
Yes, and the Earth is the screen itself. That's what's happening. So really, when you look at the sun, that's just light coming on. So when we get solar flares, you know, people are worried about solar flares hitting the planet. It's hitting us, and we're evolving our DNA. And I think the more the solar flares hit us, the more we're evolving. Like I'm seeing loads of clients come to me. They got trauma coming up. I'm not sure if you've noticed, like, you know, so much, you know, people are just kind of crying for no reason. It feels like we're in this purging process where, you know, like lifetimes and lifetimes of trauma and stuff needs to come up. And this is what's kind of in the process at the moment. This is what the high vibrational energy is doing to us. you know. But the other thing from my experience, you know, even doing energy healing, is that we all think we want extra energy, but it's really difficult to hold energy in our bodies. When we first start doing it, we can feel sick, we can throw up, we can look at a feel over there, you know, like high vibration energy can really affect our body, you know, and it's unpleasant sometimes. It takes a while to do it. You know, when I was in Jocelyn's garden the other day, you know, and you know, she's got a portal there, you know, the energy's so strong there, it can make you feel quite dizzy, it can make you feel quite sick, but over time, you just get used to it. It's something that you develop over time. Anything else?
Are you a Gleason's map person?
Say it again, sorry?
Gleason's map.
Leeson's map?
Gleason's map.
I haven't used that.
Doesn't matter. It'll cause controversy a little. That's why you.
Oh, right, okay. No, I haven't used that, sorry.
Of
course.
Would you agree, because I've heard it in going round in the community, that at this point, particularly for people like, I guess, us who are more open-hearted and open-minded and expansive in our thinking and willing to, you know, make these connections, that going forward we're going to have another strand of our DNA activated?
Yes, absolutely.
So you concur?
Yes, I do. Yeah, no, I do. I think, you know, I feel, I wish I had a DNA sample from before I started working Jerome to when I work, when I do now. I do feel different. I feel I haven't been sick for about 4 years. My psychic senses of power, and anyone who's had healing off me is very strong. So I do feel the work they did on me, it did actually change my DNA and allowed me to hold in more light. One of the other things as well, so if anyone's interested in doing remote viewing or astral travel, is there's certain sacred geometrical shapes that have power. One of them has been the Merkaba. Has anyone heard of the Merkaba? So, yeah, so if you looked at it 2D, it looks like the Star David, you know, like the Jewish symbol. And a three-dimensional thing is two pyramids on top of each other, and they spin. And what you do is use your imagination to create that. You go into the Merkaba, and then you can travel to anywhere in the universe, and it'll protect you as well then. Yeah. So, what I'd say with astral travel is be a little bit careful when you're doing it in this realm. This is like the middle realm or middle world has got a lot of vampiric energy. There's a lot of feeding going on as well, and you can. A lot of people come to me for shamanic services just because they got into trouble or they've got some beings that are leeching off them. And there's actually so. One thing I could see before, and again, this is about vibration, and usually if I want to really increase my vibration, I'll do breathing exercises. Have you heard of Wim Hof breathing, like pranayamic breathing? This is how you really raise your frequency. And some people go, oh God, I feel like I'm tripping. It's because when you're a high frequency, that's what it feels like. It feels amazing, and you can see extra things. And actually, around this room, there's floating, almost like floating jellyfish. And what they do, they kind of come round onto people, and they can sense there, and they can make you, they can read you, and they'll give you a nasty thought, or they'll give you something to think about, and they'll feed off that energy. And this is what they do. So sometimes we could be feeling great, and then all of a sudden we get a really nasty thought in our head. Like, where the hell that comes from? It's because there's these beings going round, and it's like in the same way mosquitoes need to feed, these beings need to feed as well. You know, and they're all just floating around, feeding off us. It's just, well, I was, when I was talking to them, and I'm like, oh my God, tell me all about Pleiadian star systems, tell me all about Arcturus. They were like, well, why don't you learn about your own planet? You've got so much going on, so many beings, so much kind of happening. You know, just get to learn what's happening here, because it's way more than we think.
Are they what some people call the jinn, or the shadow people?
Yes.
They feed off negative energies?
Yes, yeah. So what I've heard of the jinn is that I was created by King Solomon. So King Solomon created the jinn as such. And what's interesting is, as I was contacted, again, it's really unusual, I was contacted by this guy in the US, and I was studying shamanism, and he said, oh, I'm working with someone who can connect with the jinn. Are you interested in connecting with the jinn? I didn't know what the jinn was, and I was like, oh, that sounds some good. When I jumped on a Zoom call with him, I never felt so sick in my life. I had to literally throw up. I couldn't even speak to him, and they were like, do not work with a jinn. So my experience is that you've got darker beings, more negative and positive. The positive ones don't ask for anything. They do things for free because they're like angels and light beings. The dark will always take a price for it. So whether that's blood sacrifice, where they're draining your energy. And this is what dark magic is. You sacrifice something, and they'll feed off that soul, and they'll do something in favour. You know, it's interesting. I'm sure Jerome won't maybe say this, is that he was really into the occult before any of this stuff. He was really into dark stuff, and it got him into a lot of trouble. And what he found is when he started working with a jinn, he'd be lying in bed, and his girlfriend said at the time, he would sit up in bed like that, he would start spouting off language, which wasn't like language, it was dark language, portals be opening, beings jumping through, he'd slip back in bed and go to sleep, because he sold his soul to them, and they use them to do that. You know, when we talk about reptiles and all these things, I don't think it's the fact that these are reptiles. There's these beings that possess people. And if you hear any of these stories, they always say the eyes change, they go a bit different. I think it's because you've got these reptile beings that can possess people, make them do terrible things. And this is why a lot of people are going, oh, I got no memory of, like, you get people who've done killed loads of people and things, and they have no memory recollections. I do honestly believe that's a possession, and they do it to get their way and things like that too. Hello. Hello.
A few years ago, I read a book about Edward Lee in Switzerland.
Okay.
And he had a lot of contact with the Indians. Have you read the book?
I haven't.
What's your opinion on that?
Is that Billy Meyer?
Billy Meyer. Edward, yeah, Billy Meyer, sorry, not Edward.
Yeah.
Billy Meyer.
I haven't heard much about the book, but I wouldn't be, were they actually having, did he actually see them? Did he actually have full contact with them then, yeah?
Yeah, he had full contact with them over many years. And he's had predictions as well. About the future and things like that, like Nostradamus.
Yeah, like what I would say about predictions is that we are writing our own story. So there's many, many different realities. At any one time, we realise that another quantum mechanics is there's many, many alternative lifetimes going on. Now, I know this will sound completely bonkers, way more bonkers than I've said, but before I started the healing journey, I realised there was timeline changes. So I remember when I was younger that Nelson Mandela died in jail. And that's not the case now.
Yeah, lots of people had, isn't they?
Really?
It's called something. Is it called?
All right, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah, so, and the cartoons are different and things as well. You realise it's like slight timeline changes.
They use words as well, don't they? And etymology plays a part in it as well.
It does.
So you've got kindergarten cop now, whereas when I was young it was kindergarten cop.
Yes, yeah. That's really mad. And the other thing to realise is that, when we think about manifestation, it already exists. There's an infinite amount of realities where we're all doing some amazing things and some like really, really sad things. So when you're thinking, oh, what do I want for my future? Why not think big? Why not just go, well, whatever? Because they all exist. They have to. There's all, when you actually think about it on that scale, and you go up to higher dimensions where every possible thing, every decision that we make, there's an alternate reality to a different situation we've had. My brain can't even comprehend the amount of different realities that there potentially are. And we are doing that. But with predictions, it's one of the things the Arcturians kept on saying to me, is don't listen to other people's, because then you're taking your power away because you're subscribing to that. If you like that reality that they're talking about, then subscribe to it. This is where I think the news and stuff's really interesting, because I believe that if we watch the news and we believe it, then we're creating that reality. We're creating that reality.
It's the same with what's happening now on Saturday.
Yeah.
That isn't right, that is.
It's not.
Constitutional law dictates it.
Yeah.
And people are giving their energy because they're batteries.
Yeah.
And they're creating that reality, so it becomes reality.
It does, exactly. And I think that's one of the things I learned when I put up on a light ship and they were showing me potential realities. I was like, oh my God, I'm in control. Because when I first started doing this stuff, I'm like, what's my mission? What am I going to do? Tell me what I need to do. They were like, you're deciding that. You can do what you want. Be a painter. You can be a healer. You can, do anything. There's no rules. So yeah. Hello.
It's like manufacturing consent. What the lady just said there. Like subliminal signaling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get what I'm talking about?
Subliminals.
Subliminal messaging.
You talk about
All right.
He was talking about the media you there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like, you know,
Yeah.
dare I say it, brainwashing.
Yeah, it is. When I studied hypnotherapy, I realised that, so one thing, the flicker rate of a TV is at exact right level to hypnotise you. So when we're watching a TV screen, we are literally opened up we sink down into a meditative state and we are highly receptive to everything we see. Also as well, hypnotherapy terms that they use, you know, like they repeat certain things, flashing lights, it's all mind control. So it's again, you know, it's MK Ultra type stuff, you know. It's
assisted psychological behaviour program.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Can I just quote you a couple of lines from everybody in the room will probably know who Roger Waters is, yeah? The Pink Floyd man, yeah?
Yeah.
He wrote a solo album called Amused to Death.
Yeah.
And there was a line in it, in that song, Amused to Death, where he said the alien anthropologists admitted they were both complex and eliminating every other reason for our sad demise came to the only explanation left. This species has amused itself to death.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's really interesting. If you look at like, you know, into rap and things like that, you know, Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., they all sang they're going to die. They all sang albums. And do you think if that song's repeated and they sing it again and again and again, they manifest it?
Because
you know,
they believe it.
Because they believe it.
Repeat it often enough and you start believing it.
And what I'd also say as well, you know, be careful what you consume. I mean that in every certain way. You know, how we think is affecting reality. So if I'm listening to music and it's gangster rap and it's on about bitches and money and all this kind of stuff, then that energy's going to come to us. So I listen to as much positive music as I can. Now, so the...
Moving the water within inside you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so a bit of background about Jerome. So Jerome learned that technique. He met a rapper in Illinois called Third Eye Indigo. I recommend you check out Third Eye Indigo. He's on like Spotify. So he's a rapper, but he's a high vibe rapper. And he's talking about all the stuff I'm talking about. He's talking about multidimensionality. There's actually light language in his music. So when you listen to his music, you're getting downloads from it. And he was born, he's a Syrian, so same as you, and he had all his memories. So as soon as he was born, at the age of like 1, he was talking about, you know, his time in Egypt and on different planets and stuff like that. And he's about 22, and he writes some most amazing kind of rap music. And he's talking about multidimensionality, and it was him that taught Jerome this technique, and then Jerome taught it to me.
Sorry, what was his name again? Third Eye?
Say it again, sorry?
What was his name?
Third Eye Indigo. Yeah. And there's a big conscious movement now in the music scene. There's a lot of new music coming out, and it's all high vibe. A lot in Britain as well. There's another woman, Monitor, I think she's called, M-O-N-I-T-A, and she sings trap music, so it's like heavy bass line, but it's all about being positive and abundance. You've got songs going, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? So I'm just on the car, why am I so rich? Why am I so rich? And then all this money's starting to come in. It's like, oh my God, it's amazing.
I know some of the music you listen to as well, they prove that if you play it backwards, it's got a really demonic words being used.
Because our subconscious mind can actually understand that. So it's a really interesting thing with hypnosis. I could take each of you back to like day 3 of when you were born, and you will be able to describe everything that's happening. Everything is stored. It's huge amounts of data. What your mother looked like, you know, what you were wearing, how you felt, it's all there. We think we forget, but it's just not in our conscious mind, it's in our subconscious mind. And it's all
filed away.
Yeah. So we didn't realise that when we're watching, listening to a song, you know, and there's these subliminal messages, our subconscious mind reads them. Another interesting thing with that as well is that as we're talking, if you reverse it, there's a meaning in there. There's actually words. Have you heard that?
Yeah, Satan's one of them, isn't it?
Well, yeah, so even with babies, right? So they got a baby gurgling and talking, and when they rewind it, the baby's like, I'm hungry, in words. You should look that up. That's God's honest truth, it is. And that's why there's a group of people that take what politicians say, rewind it, and see what they actually mean. Because there's always, you can't, because we're in this kind of polar reality, we have to manifest. It's really hard, you know, like, so even if you're saying, I won't be doing this, and I'm after for the safety and stuff of people, if we rewound it, and they had like killers and stuff like that, where people saying, oh, my daughter's died and stuff like that, and then they rewound it and it said, I killed her. That's literally what's come back. You know, obviously they can't use that to convict anyone, but yeah.
Words of magic.
Other questions?
Yeah, these different races, you're talking about the Syrians and everyone else, you know, Algerians. You said they bring a different energy, each one has got a different energy that they're bringing to us, yeah?
Yeah.
So how do we know, you know, that, I don't even know what I'm trying to say now. I don't know how we formulate that question formulated. But what are they bringing to us? You know, all these different types and their energies. What?
Yeah.
How are they affecting us? How can they, and how can we connect?
Yes. Well, yeah, so the meditation I talked about there, you know, you just connect in, you become centered, and you just say, I want to connect to my Syrian star family.
But you have to be this kind of, this calm, you know, in that
you would have to be in a meditative state.
You have to be in that meditative state.
Yes, yes, you do, yeah.
I find it hard to get to a meditative state, only in flotation tank have I ever.
Yeah, and it takes practice, you know, it's just focus, and we're in a world now, you know, where if you notice, songs are getting shorter and shorter, dopamine hits are coming faster and faster. You know, my daughter's 13 and she can't even read 3 pages of a book because she's just like, you know, and it's practice, and that's another thing by design as well, is that when we haven't got much focus, when we're distracted all the time, it's really hard to manifest because we're constantly switching all the time. You know, and you think that our mind is taking everything in. So if you're flicking through the phone, you know, it's absorbing all subliminal messages. You know, usually people are eating food, you know, they're doing all this stuff. And your mind's having to deal with it all. And that's why we go to bed and we wonder why we can't sleep. It's because we're actually overloaded. Plus you've got the white light, so blue light keeps us awake, it stops the melatonin coming in. You know, so we should make sure we've got devices off, or at least wear blue block glasses, which will stop that stimulation happening. You know, that's why we can't, you know, we should go off our devices and spend as little time on them as possible. You know, so.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
It is. And I'm addicted. I say that, and I'm just, you know, I run phase. I can't not be on it. So about 2 years ago, I lost my phone. I was over in Northern Ireland. I didn't. I was completely lost. My flight tickets were on there. I couldn't buy anything. You realise how connected we are. We're absolutely like.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that. You could have printed your tickets out, couldn't you? So it is about choice, isn't it?
True. If I planned it, yes, absolutely. I just didn't. So it was just like my flight
I don't pay by card now. I pay everything cash.
Yes, absolutely.
Nobody's tracking me that way.
Yes, exactly. You know, that's where we're going with it. So.
It's too easy for us.
Cool. Good. Excellent. So one last thing, sorry. So just obviously, please feel free to follow me on Calon Lan Healing on Facebook. I've got a Telegram page and a website too. Like I don't really, because obviously I don't want to scare people off. If you know people are struggling to even understand energy healing, so if I start talking about taking up on a light ship, then they're going to blow their mind. And a lot of people, I don't offer these services until I know that they kind of are the right frequency to do it as well. So, but if you check the website out, I have got a number of services. Please get in touch if you want to do anything. There's vouchers there too, which I think gives discount off too if you want to learn any Reiki or want to connect to your right families or whatever you want to do. So yeah. So thank you so much for your time. Very grateful.